He told Clint Eastwood how to act, on Clint's own set, while Clint was directing. The response that followed became the most quoted line in Hollywood green rooms for the next decade. But this wasn't just about ego. This was about something deeper that's destroying acting today. And what happened to that young star? His career never recovered from those 8 words. Summer 2008, Detroit, Michigan. The Grand Torino set. Clint Eastwood was 78 years old, directing and starring in a film about an aging Korean War veteran confronting his prejudices and mortality. The production was running like clockwork. 6 a.m. calls, efficient shooting, no drama. Exactly how Clint had operated for 40 years. Then they brought in the young actor. We'll call him Marcus. 26 years old, fresh off a critically acclaimed independent film where he'd method-acted his way to festival buzz, studied at prestigious programs, trained in Meisner, Stanislavski, every technique with a Russian name. His agent called him the next generation of serious actors. His role in Grand Torino was supporting but significant. A gang member in several key scenes, 2 weeks of shooting, simple enough. Marcus arrived on set with a different energy than everyone else. While other actors showed up ready to work, Marcus showed up ready to explore the character space. He'd spent the previous month living in the neighborhood, talking to gang members, absorbing the environment. The first day went fine. Clint shot Marcus's scenes efficiently, 2 takes, maybe 3, moving on. But Marcus noticed something that bothered him. Clint's acting was too subtle, too minimal, too nothing. In the scene they'd just shot, Clint's character Walt Kowalski was supposed to be confronting painful memories. Marcus had watched Clint play it with just a slight tightening around his eyes. No tears, no trembling voice, no dramatic pause. Just that look. Then, moving on with the scene. During the lunch break, Marcus approached Clint. Several crew members watched this unfold with immediate anxiety. You didn't approach Clint Eastwood with unsolicited notes. You definitely didn't do it on day 1. Mr. Eastwood, Marcus began, his tone suggesting he was about to share profound wisdom. I wanted to talk about the scene we just shot. Clint looked up from his lunch, said nothing, just waited. I think Walt needs more emotional visibility in that moment, Marcus continued. When he's remembering Korea, the audience needs to see his pain. They need to feel it. Right now, it's too subtle. Most people won't catch it. Clint's expression didn't change. The scene worked. But it could be more powerful, Marcus pressed on. If you showed the emotion more openly, maybe some tears, maybe your voice breaks. Stanislavski says the actor must make the internal external. The audience can't read your mind. Several crew members had stopped eating. This was happening. This kid was actually lecturing Clint Eastwood about acting technique. Stanislavski, Clint repeated quietly. Yes. Emotional truth requires vulnerability. The character is in pain, so the actor must show pain. Otherwise, how does the audience connect? Clint set down his coffee, looked directly at Marcus. When he spoke, his voice was calm, almost gentle. But there was something underneath it that made experienced crew members instinctively take a step back. I'm the director. You're the actor. Don't confuse the roles. Marcus blinked. I'm just trying to help make the scene better. I have experience with... Do you know why I hired you? Clint interrupted. Because of my work in... I hired you to play a gang member in 6 scenes. I didn't hire you to direct me. I didn't hire you to teach me acting. I've been doing this since before you were born. The set had gone completely silent. Even the background crew noise had stopped. Marcus's face flushed. I'm not trying to direct you. I'm just offering a perspective, as one artist to another. Sometimes fresh eyes can... Do you know how many films I've directed? Clint asked. Not aggressive. Just stating facts. No, I don't know exactly. 30. This is my 30th film as a director. I've been acting for 53 years. I've worked with directors from Don Siegel to Sergio Leone. I've won Academy Awards, and you're going to tell me that my acting is too subtle? I didn't mean it like, yes, you did. You meant exactly that. You watched me work and decided you knew better, because you studied Stanislavski, because you method acted in some independent film, because you're the next generation. And I'm the old man who doesn't understand modern acting." Marcus tried to respond, but couldn't find words. "Here's what you don't understand," Clint continued, his voice still quiet but carrying absolute authority. "Real acting isn't about showing everything. It's about suggesting everything while showing the minimum. Walt Kowalski doesn't cry. He doesn't break down. He's spent 60 years burying his pain. That's the character. If I played it your way, with tears and trembling voice, I wouldn't be playing Walt Kowalski. I'd be playing what a 26-year-old thinks emotional acting looks like." The words hung in the air. "But Stanislavski," Marcus started. "Stanislavski isn't directing this film," Clint said, cutting him off. "I am. And tomorrow when you show up for your scenes, you're going to play your character the way I tell you to play him. Not how Stanislavski would. Not how your acting teacher would. How I want it. Do it my way or don't do it at all. Are we clear?" Marcus nodded, face red, unable to speak. "Good," Clint said. He picked up his coffee and went back to his lunch as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. Marcus had crossed a line that nobody crosses on a Clint Eastwood set, and everyone knew there would be consequences. The next day, Marcus showed up ready to prove himself. His big scene was coming up, the moment his character confronts Walt. Marcus had prepared extensively. He'd made choices. He had ideas about how to play it. They rehearsed once. Clint watched without comment. "Ready to shoot?" Clint asked. "Actually," Marcus said, "I wanted to discuss my character's motivation in this scene. I think he's coming from a place of—" "We're shooting it as rehearsed," Clint said. "Places everyone." They shot the scene. 2 takes. Marcus tried to add layers, to show depth, to demonstrate his training. Clint said nothing, just moved on. That evening, Marcus heard rumors. His role was being reduced, scenes were being rewritten, lines were being cut. He approached the first AD. "What's happening with my scenes?" The AD was diplomatic. "Some script adjustments. Normal stuff." But it wasn't normal. By the end of the week, Marcus's 6 scenes had become 3. His significant supporting role had become a small part. Still in the film, but barely. Marcus knew why. He'd challenged Clint. He'd offered unsolicited direction. He'd quoted Stanislavski to the man who'd defined American cinema cool. The other actors noticed. They watched Marcus's reduced role and understood the message. Don't tell Clint Eastwood how to do his job. But here's what Marcus and many young actors of his generation didn't understand. Clint's minimalism wasn't ignorance of technique. It was mastery of it. When Clint played that memory scene with just a tightening around his eyes, he was making a choice. A specific, calculated, effective choice. Walt Kowalski had spent his entire life suppressing emotion. Showing too much would betray the character. The subtlety was the point. Marcus, trained in method acting, believed more was always better. More emotion, more vulnerability, more visible technique. He'd been taught that great acting meant showing your work, demonstrating your craft, proving you'd done the preparation. Clint had learned something different over 5 decades. Great acting meant hiding your work, making it look effortless, suggesting oceans of emotion with the tiniest gesture. It's the difference between painting every detail and leaving space for imagination, between explaining everything and trusting your audience, between performing and being. Grand Torino wrapped on schedule. Marcus finished his reduced role and left Detroit. The film released in December 2008. Critics and audiences loved it. Clint's performance was called masterful, understated, emotionally devastating. Nobody mentioned Marcus's performance, because there wasn't enough of it left to mention. The story spread through Hollywood, not as gossip, but as a cautionary tale. Acting coaches used it as an example. Don't be like the kid who told Clint Eastwood how to act. Marcus's career continued, but the momentum from his festival success never translated to major roles. Casting directors remembered him as that kid from Grand Torino who got his part reduced. Directors heard he was difficult. Producers heard he didn't understand hierarchy. 5 years later, Marcus was back doing independent films, the kind he'd started with. The Hollywood career his agent had promised never materialized. Grand Torino grossed over $270 million worldwide. It became one of Clint's most successful films. His performance is now studied in acting classes as an example of restraint and power. The scene Marcus had criticized, the memory scene with just the tightening around Clint's eyes, is frequently cited as one of the most powerful moments in the film. Film professors show it to students as proof that great acting doesn't require tears or trembling voices. Sometimes it just requires truth. Years later, in a masterclass, a young actor asked Clint about his approach to emotional scenes. The actor referenced method acting, preparation, sense memory. Clint's answer was characteristically brief. "I don't prepare emotions. I prepare circumstances. If you know your character and you know the situation, the emotion takes care of itself. Anything else is showing off." Someone in the audience asked if he believed in method acting. "I believe in whatever works," Clint said. But most of what passes for method acting these days is just actors making everything about themselves instead of about the character. Real acting is about serving the story, not proving you can cry on command. Then someone asked about actors giving directors notes on set. Clint smiled slightly, that same slight smile that had become famous over 50 years. An actor can have ideas, can suggest things, but there's a way to do it. You don't lecture the director about technique. You don't quote acting teachers. You don't try to redirect the film. You're there to collaborate, not to compete. If you can't tell the difference, you won't last long. The masterclass audience laughed, but the actors in the room understood. There was a real warning buried in that gentle delivery. Marcus wasn't in that audience. He'd left Los Angeles by then, teaching acting at a small college in the Midwest. Still talking about Stanislavski. Still believing that showing more meant acting better. Still not understanding what Clint had tried to teach him that day on the Grand Torino set. The best acting looks like no acting at all. Today, Grand Torino remains one of Clint's most beloved films. It's recommended to anyone learning about restraint in performance, about how less can be more, about how a look can say more than a monologue. And somewhere in film school classes, professors still tell the story of the young method actor who tried to teach Clint Eastwood how to act. They tell it not to mock Marcus, but to illustrate a principle. Confidence is good, but wisdom knows when to listen. Marcus had talent. He had training. He had theory. But he didn't have the humility to recognize mastery when he was standing in front of it. Clint had spent 53 years learning his craft. Marcus had spent 3 years at acting school. One of them thought the other needed education. He chose wrong. The lesson isn't that young actors should never have opinions. It's that opinions should come with awareness of context. You can suggest, you can offer, you can collaborate. But you don't lecture legends about fundamentals. And you definitely don't quote Stanislavski to the man who defined cool with a squint and a cigar. Because Clint Eastwood's acting philosophy can be summarized simply: do the work, know your character, trust your choices, and let the audience do the rest. No tears required, no trembling voice necessary, no Stanislavski needed, just truth. Delivered with the kind of confidence that comes from 5 decades of proving over and over that sometimes the quietest performances are the loudest.